Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me hit this button. My name's Aron, and welcome to Project SOAR Fit. I'm going to adjust this camera just a little bit so that it doesn't stop you from seeing the top of me when I'm back on the mat. There we go. I think that works. So I don't have anyone who's logged on live with me, which means you're probably joining me via YouTube. So welcome. If you've not worked out with me before, Project SOAR is a part of Access of Wilmington. And this program is for veterans with disabilities. I do this fitness class twice a week via Zoom and save it onto YouTube so that you can do these workouts whenever you'd like. These are full body adaptive workouts. So you may see me do some different demonstrations showing people how they can do different variations of these exercises, including options that you can do seated. Please do what works best for you. Since I don't have you live, I can't adjust on the fly. So I'm sort of just guessing about what people's needs might be. But if you have specific questions or concerns about any of the exercises we do, or if you need a different adaptation, please reach out to me. My phone number is in the comments or in the description rather. And you can also leave me comments if you don't want to call or text. And I can try to make adjustments or explain something better if you weren't sure what we were trying to go for. We also, in addition to doing these exercises to increase our overall functional fitness and to maintain our fitness for our everyday lives, we also do these to make it so that we can enjoy recreation. So quite a few of us just came back from a ski trip, and a lot of our workout prior to that was really focused on the types of movements that would be helpful for skiing or snowboarding. Now that that trip is done, we have another trip coming up with several more participants where we're going to go climbing. So I've included some specific climbing things, but even if you're not going to do climbing with us, don't worry. These workouts, like I said, are for everyday functionality. So these things will come in handy, even if you're not planning on doing the climbing trip with us. It is a beautiful day out, a little chilly. I hope you've had a chance to get out a little bit and maybe move your body, but if you haven't, don't worry. We'll do a quick warm up, a little bit of dynamic stretching, and then we'll get started on the workout proper. We've been doing 3 rounds of 8 exercises, and we're going to stick with that today. We might change that up later. But what that's going to look like is each exercise is going to be 50 seconds of movement and then 10 seconds of rest. But really those 10 seconds we use to get 40 seconds and 20 seconds of rest, or 30 seconds of movement and 30 seconds of rest. Like you have that control, and then just keep staying with those minute segments. In between each round of 8, we'll take a 60-second break. But again, if you're doing this on YouTube and you need longer, feel free to hit the pause button and come back in when you're ready. And you can also choose to do more or less rounds. So if you want to do 2 rounds and then skip ahead to the cool down, you're welcome to do that. Or if you just feel like today's the day you want to do like 5 rounds, you can hit repeat. So you can really control this and dial it in for what you need. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I mentioned that we'll do a warm up. If you haven't had a chance to move your body today, it's always a good idea to kind of get the blood flowing before we get into the workout proper. So what I usually do is just 2 minutes of moving around. I just divide it up into 30 seconds of different movements. You can do the same movements as me, or you can do something else. And I'll give a couple different options. So I'm about to get started. I'm going to start my smartwatch, and that's how I'm going to track our time and then also my progress. So, oh, no, wrong one. There we go. All right, so let's begin. We're going to start with 30 seconds of jogging. So I'm going to jog in place. You don't have to jog if that feels like it's not the right thing for your body. If you don't want to do so much bouncing, you could do high knees, like a march. And then you could do the same thing. If you're seated in a chair, you could lift your knees up or lift one heel and then the other. So again, dialing this in, letting it work for you, whatever that looks like. We're just trying to get that heart rate up and moving so that we can get our bodies ready for our workout. Okay, that was 30 seconds of jogging. I'm going to move on to jacks. And again, I'm doing sort of the high impact classic version of a jack here. Oh, I'm losing my ponytail. If you wanted to keep it low impact, you could put one foot out at a time. And you could do the same thing from seated. So, you know, it would look a little bit like this. And then the steps are as big and or as fast as works for you. That was 30 seconds. I'm going to move on to punches. And you can do these standing, or again, you could be seated and punch it out. You could get really fancy with this and switch out the jabs with some uppercuts. But really, again, this is just about moving your body and getting everything up and running. Okay, last 30 seconds. I'm going to do a torso twist. So kind of keeping a little bit of that motion that I was doing when I was punching. And again, this can also be done seated, and it looks just like this. Three, if you need a little bit more warm up, again, hit pause, do what you need to do to get the blood flowing, and then come. More of like checking in with how I feel. So I'm going to put my feet together and do 5 slow squats, trying to keep my shoulders over my hips and just kind of checking in with how my body feels today, that range of motion and how all my muscles feel. I'm going to do 5 with my feet in this position. And if you're seated, I'll show you an option in just a moment. So I think that's 5 there. So next we'll take the feet hips distance and we'll do 5 squats. Or if you're following me from the chair, what you can do is heel lifts. So lifting the heels and then lowering them back down with your feet about hips distance apart. And then we'll do 5 more of either those squats or those heel lifts, whichever you choose, but this time with the feet wide, toes opening up wider than heels, and we'll do 5 more, nice and slow. Again, we're not really trying to get the heart rate up anymore. This is more about seeing how all our joints and muscles feel. Checking in with how stable and balanced we feel today. This will help us make decisions about how we're going to do the rest of our workout. All right, after you're done with those, let's move the spine a little bit. So if you're seated, you can do a cat-cow with your hands on your knees, lifting the chest, arching the back, maybe even lifting the tailbone a little, and then rounding the back, tucking the tailbone, looking down at your thighs or your navel, and you repeat that. And then you could also do the same thing standing. You just come into a little bit of a squat and do the same motion. If you wanted to do the more classic version like you do in yoga on your hands and knees, you feel free to do that if that feels more appropriate. Let's do one more rounding, and then come back up. And we're going to do a side bend and then a little bit of a trunk rotation. So we're still working on the spine a little bit here. So you can either do this seated or standing. I'm going to bring my hands behind my head because it just seems like it's easier for me to do it this way. And I'm going to bend to the left. And then once I'm in that side bend, I'm going to rotate my chest down, back up to the front, and then keep turning chest towards the sky. And let's do that 5 times. One more. And after that last one, come back through the center and let's go to the other side. So I'm leaning to my right now, rotating through the trunk so that my chest is facing down a little bit towards my feet, and then turning back to the center and up towards the sky. And again, this is going to look very similar seated. Oh, I got a little back pop there. That was a nice sensation. And that was 5. We're gonna move a little bit more to the lower body and start to make some movement through the hips. I'm going to demonstrate this standing. You could also do this seated, basically by scooching over to one side and having the leg that you're working with kind of hanging off the back. And I've shown that in some previous videos. If you have questions about that, again, just reach out to me and I can show you. But I'm going to show you from standing today. So I'm going to let my weight come to that inside foot, and I'm going to pick up this knee and then make a circle right through the hip joint so the knee comes out, down, and around. And again, we're going to stick with 5s. There's one more. And then I'm going to swing that leg out in front, give that toe a lift back towards my knee, and then swing my leg behind me, squeezing my glute a little. And for these, we can get a little bit of a swing, so we can use some momentum. I think that's 5. After that 5th one, let's keep the leg kicked out in front and go side to side. So great. And let's do all of that on the other side. And actually, you know what? I'm going to demonstrate seated on this side, but feel free to do it standing if you want to do it standing. But I just want to show what this looks like. So, like I said, I'm going to kind of scooch over. I'm going to use the chair to help me balance so I don't fall off. And I'm going to pick this knee up and rotate it out, just like we did standing. I'm just scooched over on the edge of the chair enough to give myself room to do that movement. And then after 5 times, I'm going to go the other direction. And I can't quite swing the leg forward and back very easily just because I'm too close to the ground, but I'll kind of lean over to one side to give myself that room. The edge, so I have room. Let's do a little bit of movement in our shoulders and neck, and then we'll get started on the workout. So for this, I'm going to shrug up. You're making circles through that shoulder joint. Your hands can be loose at your sides, or you can make your arms like chicken wings, or you can extend your arms out, or you can do a variation of those different versions. And of course, you can do this seated as well. I just stood up to get a little closer to the camera so you can see. And then let's reverse the circles. So whichever variation or variations you want to do, we're just going to take those circles in the opposite direction. And let's let that be the last one. And then let's go more into the neck and the top of the shoulders, letting our ear fall over towards the shoulder. I'm starting on my right side. And you can stay here and just notice the stretching sensations that might be happening in your neck or your shoulder, or even up into the back of your head. Or if you wanted to explore this a little bit more, you could tilt your chin down or up. And if you choose to do that movement, There may be one angle that feels like an especially nice stretch, so if you want to spend time there, you're welcome to. And then you can start moving again if that feels right. And then let's go ahead and let that chin come back down towards the chest. And then let's take left ear to left shoulder. So other side, same thing. You can be here still, or you can do a little rotation there. And let's take another breath. Let our chin come towards our chest. Look up again. I'm all done with stretching. Again, if you feel like there's something else you need to do before we start the workout, feel free to do it. We're about to start that workout now. I didn't mention it before. I'm not playing music because it makes it hard for you to hear me. Plus, I don't have the copyright to play anything. But if you have playlists that you like, go ahead and play it. I know music can be really motivating, so feel free to use that. Our first exercise today is going to be a squat with a pulse, and I'll demonstrate that first before we officially start. So I'm going to do this as a wide leg squat, keeping the shoulders right over the hips, bending the knees in line with the hips and the ankles and the toes. And then I'm going to come halfway up with a little pulse, come back down, and then all the way up. So that's it. It's a squat pulse, pulse, and back up, pulse, and back up. If you are doing this seated, we're going to go back to that idea of using heel raises. So you'll heel raise, come down part of the way, and then heel raise again, and then lower all the way down. So you're still incorporating that little pulse. And let me tell you, you'll start to feel those in these 50 seconds. All right, if everyone's ready, I'm going to start my timer. And we'll start in about 10 seconds. So go ahead and get where you need to be for whichever variation you're doing. And we're going to start in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Squat, pulse, and all the way up. Or heel raise, pulse, and all the way down. Try to keep your shoulders over your hips. And keep your knees in line with the other joints. You can go as fast or as slow as you'd like. See if you can slow it down to where you feel nice and stable. We're halfway through these 50 seconds. Remember, if you need a different ratio, if 50 seconds is more work in 1 minute than you need today, feel free to change that ratio. Take a little more rest. 10 more seconds of our exercise portion, and then we're going to have 10 seconds to move to the next exercise. Next exercise is a bicep curl. You can do this with your hands made into fists and using your own body's resistance, or you could add a hand weight, and that's it. So let's start. Curl up and back down, and you could also do this seated. It's going to look just the same. You might just want to scooch out a little bit to the edge of your chair, just enough to give your arms some room. And you saw that the chair that I'm using is like one of those dining room chairs that doesn't have any arms on it. That makes it a little easier to do a workout. If you're in a wheelchair and you're able to remove the arms or shift them down, that's probably a good idea. And make sure that your brake is on so you don't accidentally roll when you don't mean to. All right, we have 10 seconds before we move on to the next exercise. It is a shoulder press. And again, either with or without weight. Let's go. Hands come up to the shoulders. Elbows are about shoulder height. You press up and lower back down. See if you can pull your shoulder blades together in the back. Keep those elbows wide and draw the belly button to the spine to keep your upper body stable and keep from overarching the back because we don't want to hurt our back while we do this. We're halfway through these shoulder presses. 10 more seconds. All right, 10 seconds. Next exercise is a tricep dip. I'm actually going to do this using the chair. I'm going to turn it at an angle so you can see. To create this, so you can have your legs extended all the way out, or you could have your knees bent. And if coming with your seat off the chair isn't a good option from you, if you're staying seated, you could bring your hands behind you and use that resistance pressing down through your hands to lift your chest. And you could also do an extension with your arms behind you and do a tricep lift if that feels like a better option, if you're able to get that tricep sensation. You have 10 more seconds. So I'm going to do this variation for the last bit. All right, next exercise is a plank. You can do plank on your hands, extended, or on your forearms, if that's a better option for you. You can do that on the mat, or if you're seated, you can have your arms extended in front of you, hands flexed, right at shoulder height. I promise you are going to feel this in your forearms, even without your body's resistance on the floor. I'm going to continue to show this variation though. You can either be on your toes or on your knees, but just make sure that you have a straight line from your shoulders to your hips to your knees, that you're not dropping your hips or piking them up. To get that stability, you're going to need to draw your belly button to your spine. That core strength is what lets us hold here. 3, 2, 1. We are going to come into a side plank. If you're on the mat like I am, you can either lift your hips when they're stacked or one foot in front, and time has started, so go ahead and pick yours. You could also use one knee lower. And I am going to come up to my chair again because I want to show what this might look like. If you're seated, you can try to make that crunch. It's this contraction on these obliques that we're trying to get to. You can extend this leg out if that allows you a little bit more of a contraction. And if that feels weird, you could always come back into that side bend and hold. So that's a variation too. We have 10 more seconds. I'm going to come back into this variation. And then we're going to switch sides. So whichever way you were doing this, go ahead and switch to the other side. And let's go. Here comes that 50 seconds. I have my top arm lifted up. But if that doesn't feel right, you don't have to do that. You can bring your hand to your hip. Don't forget to breathe here. We're holding the posture, but we're not holding our breath. So keep breathing. We're halfway through this. It feels like it takes a lot longer since I'm holding it the whole time instead of showing different variations. Woo. Remember, you can take a break if you ever need to and then come back in when you're ready. We have 10 more seconds. All right, we're about to start our last exercise, which is simple abdominal crunches. If you're seated in a chair, they'll look just like this. Our time has started. I'm going to show what they look like here. So my hands are behind my head, elbows are wide, drawing the navel in and using that to crunch up, lifting the shoulders, and keep that control as I lower down. And we're squeezing the same muscles if we're doing this from seated. We have 10 more seconds of crunches, and then we get a little break before we do the next round. All right, 60 seconds of rest. Feel free to get some water, use the restroom, hit pause if you feel like you need a little more than 60 seconds. And then when we come back, we're going to right back into those squat pulses or those heel raise pulses. All right, we're going to start in about 5 seconds. So let's get in position. And let's go. Squat, pulse, and finish. Squat, pulse, and up. There we go. We're halfway through this exercise. Go ahead and stick with it. Check in with your shoulders. See if you can center them right over your hips. Pressing through your heels as you press up. 10 seconds to transition to bicep curls. Again, I'm going to use weights. You don't have to. You can also use an exercise band. Let's go. And I actually have exercise bands at the Access office. So if you want to use exercise bands as resistance and you don't have any, again, just reach out to me and I can get those to you. Seconds. All right, 10 seconds to transition and begin our shoulder press. These 10 seconds go fast. Let's go. We're halfway through these shoulder presses, and I am feeling these. Seconds. 10 more seconds. All right, next we're going to do those tricep dips. You can do those like I showed in the first round. I'm going to show a variation you can do without a chair. Let's go. So they're going to look like this. So I'm right on the floor. I can either have my knees bent, or if I want to add a little more resistance, I could have my legs extended. Seconds. 10 more seconds, and I am burning. Let's rest and get ready for our plank hold. This time I'm going to show you the forearm version of a plank. Again, you can do what works best for you. And we begin already. If you're on a forearm plank, see if you can bring your elbows right under your shoulders. And we're still drawing in on the navel to keep the body in a straight line. We're halfway there. Remember, if you feel like you're using your back instead of your core, maybe take some of that resistance off by lowering to your knees. You're still going to get a great workout, but you'll take some of that pressure off your back. All right, we have 10 seconds to move on to those side planks. And again, I'm just going to show another variation. I think I showed on the forearm last time, but you could also come onto your hand directly. I can't remember which one I did last time, but you could do either. Remember, if having your feet stacked doesn't feel right, you could put one foot in front of the other. You could also put that bottom leg down and use that for a little additional support. Seconds. 10 more seconds. The important part is we want to feel that contraction right here in that oblique muscle. Let's go over to the other side. Remember, you have choices. You could be on your forearm. Let's go. Or you could be on the palm of your hand. Just get that shoulder right over the hand. You don't want to be back here. That puts too much strain on the shoulders. You want to be right on top of it. And then remember, you have those options for your feet if you want to change it up. Just see if you can really contract right there. Seconds. 10 more seconds, and then we're right back to those crunches. This goes fast. Each round is only 8 minutes long, and then we get a rest. I'm going to show the crunches seated the whole time this time, just to show you that variation. But remember, you can do it on your back. And then here's what we look like. Let's go. Crunch, and then back up. Crunch, and then back up. So if you're seated, we're bringing the chest down towards the thighs by pulling the abdominal muscles in as we round forward. So again, it's the same movement as we do in a crunch on our back. Our orientation has just changed, that's all. Seconds. 10 more seconds, then we get another minute to rest before we do one final round together. All right, here's our rest. We got 60 seconds. Remember, if you need more, you've got control. Just hit that pause button and come back when you're ready. After this final round, we'll do a cool down and stretch. And if I didn't mention it before, because now I can't remember, I'm also going to show you some special hand exercises. They are great if you have arthritis. They were actually recommended by an occupational therapist for someone with arthritis. Another one of our members shared them with me. But they're also great for building hand strength if you are going to climb with us. So these are important for our daily life and also for our recreation. All right, we're going to start in 5 seconds. I'm going to come back to the squats with pulse. Let's go. Squat and pulse and up. And remember, if you're seated, it'll be heel raise, pulse, and down. Seconds. 10 more seconds of work before we transition to those bicep curls for the last time today. Rest or transition. Let's go. Even if you're not using weights or the resistance bands, I want you to imagine that you are moving something heavy on the way up and on the way down. That mental focus really helps contract the muscles that we're targeting, helps us stay stable, so we're using the whole body. And that mental focus is actually just a way to kind of work in some mindfulness. So we're working our brain at the same time we're working our muscles. All right, we have 10 seconds before we start those shoulder presses. Same thing. Even if you choose not to use extra resistance, imagine that resistance is there. Let's press up and pull back down, really drawing the shoulder blades together and opening the chest as we lower down. So even though this is a strengthening exercise, there's also an aspect of a stretch here. We're stretching through the chest muscles as we're building strength in our shoulder muscles. We're halfway through the shoulder press. Seconds. 10 more seconds. And next exercise are those tricep dips. I'm going to come back to my chair for these. But you can do any of the variations that work for you. We are starting already. Those 10 seconds to transition go quick. We're halfway through these tricep dips. If you need a break, take a break. I'm definitely feeling these on this third round. I'm having to slow it down a little bit. Because I am smoked in my triceps. All right, 10 seconds to transition to our plank. Coming back down. Here we go. Whatever variation of plank suits you today, what's the most appropriate thing for your body and your goals in this moment. It may not be the same as it was on round one. That's okay. I know I am definitely feeling fatigued, so if you make a different choice on this round, that means you've been working hard. That's okay. Seconds. 10 more seconds. And in 10 more seconds, we're going to be into that side plank. Remember, you can choose whatever side plank works best for you. Let's come up and hold, contracting those oblique muscles. These oblique muscles are really important for our movement and day-to-day activities. That twisting and bending motion is important for a lot of things that we do in our life. And then also, if you've been on the climbing wall with us, you know that that's a really important part of being able to get to some of those handholds that are a little far away or in an awkward place. So again, these workouts can help us in our day-to-day life, but also to help us get better at the things we find fun. Ooh, let's come to the other side. Let's go. Don't give up yet. See if you can lift that top of the hip just a little higher. We're almost there. And let's rest. Next to those crunches, I'm going to do this round on my back. Let's go. Last exercise of the workout. And then we'll have a chance to cool down, stretch, and I'll show you those hand exercises. Halfway through these. Seconds. 10 more seconds. We're almost there. Don't stop now. Great job. Take a moment to rest. Get a drink of water, and we will start our cool down in about 30 seconds or so. And again, if you need more time, just hit pause. If you need more time, again, hit pause, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with our cool down stretch. And the first thing I want us to do is actually do a stretch to stretch out our ankles. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do that. One, if you have a step or something like yoga blocks like I have here, you can step up onto them and then let the heels fall down. And I'm using my chair to help me balance a little bit here because that's not super steady. If I was doing this on my steps, it would be a little steadier. Another option, if you don't have that or if it doesn't feel right, you could put one heel or one ball of your foot up against the wall and then imagine that you're sending that knee towards the wall to stretch out that ankle and a little bit of the calf too. And then you could switch sides. And yet again, you could also do a calf stretch seated. You have an old belt or a strap or a yoga strap. You could put that on the balls of your feet and pull the balls of your feet back so you can feel that stretch through the ankles. There's lots of different ways to do this. You can do more than one. You can do 1 foot at a time. And if you don't have a strap, you could even pull with your hands and then press through your heel. So your leg doesn't have to be extended to make this work. If you're able to grab onto the ball of your foot. So all of those are great options for an ankle stretch. Let's spend about another 30 seconds doing whatever variation works for you. I'm going to come onto these yoga blocks and try not to fall. There we go. Having to use a shelf to help me stay stable. But that does feel good in my ankles. And that Achilles tendon that wraps around the back of the ankles and the bottom of the foot. Let's do another breath. And let's come out of this. Next, we're going to do a seated split. And again, you can do that seated in a chair. Take your legs wide with either your knees bent or your legs extended. Trying to sit up tall and maybe flex those toes back towards your knees. And then if you're on the ground, it's going to look pretty similar. I know that this can be a little awkward. I know I find just bringing my seat up by a couple inches with either a rolled up towel or a yoga block or something like that makes this a little easier on my back. And then something else I want you to try to do, sometimes when we sit like this, our legs kind of roll out, our toes open this way. But see if you can use that strength in your thighs to rotate so that the knees and your shins and your toes are pointing up. And then from here, you can start to hinge through the hips and fold forward. And it doesn't have to be a big movement. I know I'm already feeling a lot just coming forward this little bit, just changing that angle slightly. And breathe into it. You don't have to force yourself to go deeper. In fact, sometimes using that force makes your body resist. So maybe take it slow and breathe into it. And then you'll find the body starts to make a little room in the joints a little bit at a time so that you can go further. And then it doesn't happen all at once, but if you practice fairly consistency over time, you can increase that flexibility a little bit. Let's take one more breath wherever you are, and then we'll come back up tall. And now I'm going to bend the knees and bring the soles of the feet together. I'm going to get rid of that block now. I don't feel like I need it here. And again, if you're seated in the chair, it's going to look similar. You can let the knees come wide and the feet come towards the middle. And you can stay up tall, or if you want to add that forward fold again, you can. See if you can get into that fold again by allowing it to happen. Even if you do hold on to your feet, that's fine, or your ankles, but try not to use your upper body to pull yourself closer. See if you can allow that low back to release a little at a time by breathing into it, and then allow that flexibility to come instead of trying to force your way. If you use your upper body to pull and you're nice and strong, then you could actually injure your back that way. So you want to let the back get there on its own terms. And one more breath, and then slowly let's make our way back up. Let's Let's do some stretches in the upper body. We did a lot of stuff that worked our chest and our arms and our shoulders today. So let's do a couple chest stretches. You could put, I'm hoping you can see this, your arm on the wall and then turn your body away from the wall. So you're getting a stretch through the front of your chest here. And you could even do that seated. Same thing, get close, your chair close enough to the wall that you can put your arm there and then rotate through your upper body and you'll feel that same stretch. So it's the same whether you're seated or standing. The movement comes from that trunk rotation if you're seated. Whew. You can definitely feel that. Let's do another breath here and then we'll switch to the other side. All right, I'm going to get up and switch. I'm going to do this side standing. Hold my computer out. There we go. And release. And we'll do another chest stretch. A couple ways you could do this. You could reach your hands behind you and clasp your fingers together, or maybe grab your wrists with your hands. If your hands don't meet back there, this is another good opportunity to use something like a belt or a strap. You can hold on to either end of it and then allow yourself to find that tension that lets you open through the chest, and then start to lift the arms up. If you are seated, you could do the same thing if you have room at the edge of your chair, or another option is you could grab towards the bottom of the chair or the back of the chair and use that to create that resistance. So again, lots of ways to do this. The result being that our shoulder blades draw together and the front of our body, the chest, gets to stretch. And we're still breathing. Let's take one more breath, speaking of breathing. And then release. Turn back towards you. We'll do another shoulder stretch here. Taking our left arm across the chest and then hooking right about where that tricep is and hugging that in to get a stretch through the shoulder. And again, you could do this standing or seated. It's going to look just the same. See if you can drop to the top of that shoulder. If you notice that it's kind of creeping up to your ear, see if you can pull it down. And then let's release. We'll do the other side. And then let's let that go. We're all done with the stretching. I promise you we do these hand exercises. I'm actually going to get up and move closer to the camera so that you can see what I'm doing with my hands. So you would actually do this with both hands at the same time. If you wanted to, you could switch back and forth. I'm just going to put this hand up towards the camera so you can see, and then I'll show you what this looks like. So you start with your hand expanded as much as it'll go. And then you curl the top fingers. And then you expand again. And then you make a fist as tight as you can, wrapping that thumb around the outside edge. And then expand again. And then you come down with the fingers like halfway like this. It's like we're doing shadow puppets. And then expand again. And then we curl the fingers again. And this time the thumb stays up. And then we expand the whole hand. So that's the series of movements. You would do this maybe 5 times And I'll show you again. Expand, curl, expand, fist, expand, that little hand puppet thing, expand, fist with the thumb out like you're trying to hitch a ride, and then expand again. So you would do that maybe about 5 times. And then you might repeat that several times a day. And like I said, this is great for building hand strength. So whether you are someone like me that just can't seem to get the bottles of water and pickle jars to open, or whether you're wanting to increase your ability to hold on to those handholds when we go climbing, this is a great way to kind of build that hand strength up. So if you have any questions, let me know. We might do this a few more times as we're getting ready for the climbing trip. But since we're almost done, I'm going to let you go. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that I get to see you in some in-person events soon. Have a good day. Bye.